Hello everyone, my name is Tor-Ivar. I am a landscape photographer based in Nordreisa in northern Norway. I have been photographing the Northern Lights for the last 10 years now, and in this video I will give you guys some nice to know and some need to know information about the Northern Lights. I will tell you guys why these lights happen, when and where you can see them, and also how you can photograph them. So without further ado, let's get into why these lights happen. So what is it that makes these lights happen? In the Northern Hemisphere, these lights are called the Northern Lights or Aurora Borealis. And its mirror in the Southern Hemisphere are called Southern Lights or Aurora Australis. These lights are created by particles launched into space from the sun. This can happen in a variety of ways, like a coronal mass ejection or a solar flare. Some of these particles then get caught by the magnetic field of the Earth. These particles will then rush down towards the magnetic north or south pole. When the aurora happens, what we see is these particles from the sun connecting with atoms and molecules from the magnetic field of the Earth. The energy produced by this connection is so powerful that we see oxygen and nitrogen gases glow in different colors as they heat up. Green being the normal color, pink and magenta and blue are also somewhat normal, and then there is this rare red aurora that is high level oxygen being affected. To put this into perspective, the highest clouds we have on this planet happens at an altitude of 45,000 feet or 13 kilometers. The Northern Lights happens at 10 times this. There are three factors that are important when it comes to the auroral activity. The first one being the solar wind speed, the second one density, and the third one is the most important one. It's the interplanetary magnetic field. In the Northern Hemisphere, we have a north-oriented magnetic field. And in order to have the most energetic aurora, we want the interplanetary magnetic field to have a southward oriented charge. Similar to our regular magnet, north attracts south. And when this happens, the energy that is being produced by these two opposites will create the glow that we know as the Northern Lights. And this leads me to the next little chapter in this video. Where can you see the Northern Lights, and also when can you see them? During low to medium activity levels, you can see the Northern Lights from 70 degrees north and down to 65 degrees north. Translated into places, this would be Svalbard, northern Norway, northern Finland, northern Sweden, and also Iceland. In all of these places, the Northern Lights season starts in September and lasts through March. Let's say you've made it to one of these places and you want to plan your night out chasing the Northern Lights. I do use a handful of resources when I plan my nights out in northern Norway, spaceweatherlive.com being one of them. This page gives me an idea of the current activity level as well as what I can expect in the days ahead. The KP index scale is a geographical indication of where we can expect to see the Northern Lights with the activity level that has been forecasted. KP index 0, 1 and 2 basically covers northern Norway, Iceland, northern Sweden and northern Finland. As you can see from this illustration, the higher the KP index number is, the further south you are expected being able to see the northern lights. The beauty of chasing the northern lights up north is that it doesn't require much activity level to be able to see the northern lights. We basically see the northern lights several times a week, given that the weather is okay, of course, but it doesn't require much activity. All it requires is a little gust of solar wind or a good substorm, and you will have colorful and energetic auroras even at low activity levels. Obviously, you need clear skies or a gap in the clouds, which leads me to the next set of resources that I use for planning my nights out. The weather service I use when I plan my aurora chasing is the one from the Norwegian Meteorological Institute, yr.no. If you click nearby in the menu, you will get to a page giving you a combined forecast for both northern lights and the cloud cover. You also have access to a few web cameras as well as the regional weather, and in the next page an hour-to-hour forecast for the weather, of course, and I use this quite a bit when I am out shooting. When it comes to shooting the northern lights, we know that we will be shooting them during the evening or at night. This gives us a set of challenges when it comes to the gear that we're using, the settings we have to use, and also the knowledge we have about our camera. It is very beneficial that you know how to operate your camera in the dark. You will not gain many new friends if you're the one using the head torch 95% of the time when you're out shooting. When it comes to the camera gear that you need to shoot the northern lights, your new iPhone will do just fine. However, it's recommended that you use a full frame camera. These cameras have larger sensors and thereby deals better with the ISO levels that you need in order to capture the northern lights. The normal range of ISO is between 1600 and 3200 ISO, while some cameras handle even higher ISO than this, and especially with the noise reduction software that is available today. In general, you want an ultra-wide angle lens with a fast aperture. The reason for this is that the balance between the aperture and the ISO that you're using will dictate the shutter speed that you must use in order to capture the best auroras your camera can. I use an app called PhotoPills. This app tells me what shutter speed is the maximum I can use to get pinpoint sharp stars, or if I am satisfied with a little trail in my stars, it also gives me a shutter speed with an acceptable trail. When I open my PhotoPills app and I scroll down to spot stars, you will see I've already put in my Sony A1 at 12mm and 2.8 as an aperture, giving me approximately 8 seconds for pin sharp stars and around 17 seconds if a little trailing is okay for me. When I first go out shooting, I start my settings at an ISO of 3200, a 10-second shutter speed, and of course an aperture of 2.8. This gives me an idea of how dark it is and what I see with my current exposure, giving me information I need in order to adjust. In this case, I will adjust either the ISO or shutter speed, as I want my aperture to be as low as it can go. So we have now talked about the exposure triangle when it comes to the northern lights: the ISO, the aperture, and the shutter speed. Another important factor is focus. Since we're shooting at night, you need to be using manual focus. And the way I find my focus is that I find the brightest star in the sky and I adjust my focus so that that star is at its smallest or sharpest. And after I find my focus, I will take a test shot, check that I actually am in focus, and I will check if I am in focus after I've changed locations or after I've done a few shots, just to make sure that I haven't bumped into my focus ring and messed up the focus. It's hard to see without zooming in because the LCD display is so small and it boosts the contrast so much. So it's hard to tell whether you are in focus or not without zooming in on your image. The last setting I want to talk about is the white balance setting. Normally, if you leave it at auto white balance, you will see that your shots during the night is very warm and yellowish. So I usually set my white balance to 4200 Kelvin and leave it at that. It gives me a happy medium of cold green auroras, and I do shoot raw, so I can adjust this when I get back to my computer anyways. It just gives me an idea of what my shots will look like after post-processing. We are getting to the end of this video, you guys, and I wanted to leave you guys with a couple of tips first. The first one being to use the self-timer option. That is, if you don't have a shutter release cable or remote. The second one is answering one of the questions I got prior to this video, and it's about shooting with an iPhone. If you're shooting with an iPhone, I do recommend using a tripod, the self-timer option, and you will benefit from using a 10-second exposure time. You can adjust this within the camera app. And I think that's it. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. It's my first one talking to the camera, and I hope to produce more content on YouTube in the future. So please give this video the thumbs up and do subscribe if you like my content on Instagram and hopefully here in a while. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you around.